So these are the ingredients that we're going to need. Caster sugar or granulated sugar, some fast action dried yeast, regular plain white gluten-free flour, whole psyllium husk, some table salt, olive oil, just normal olive oil, apple cider vinegar, and some warm water. First we're going to activate the yeast, so half a teaspoon of the dried yeast into 130 grams of tepid water, and half a tablespoon of caster sugar, give it a stir, make sure it's nice and dispersed. And then we'll pop that somewhere warm, just so it starts to froth, and that will take about 10 to 15 minutes. While we wait for the yeast to froth up, and proof that it's working, we need to mix, turn that on, we need to mix up 120 grams of plain white gluten-free flour, there we go. We need some whole psyllium husk, which is going to give it the stretch and hold it all together. Now for that we need 1 level tablespoon plus 1 level teaspoon. Okay, and a little salt, which I tend to be quite frugal with in my pizza bases, so just half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, now need to thoroughly mix that so that that psyllium husk is spread all the way through. We do not want it sitting in one spot and making lumps. Okay, that looks fine. Now we just need to wait for the yeast. Right, the yeast is ready. We can see that it's got quite frothy, lots of bubbles on top. That means it's alive and it will do its thing. So to that we need to add half a tablespoon of olive oil, that's that, and half a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. You can use white wine vinegar as well, it doesn't make much odds. Okay, give that a little stir to mix it all through, and now we need to be quite quick, make a little bit of a well, pour that in, and mix it up nice and quickly. Now it will start out quite runny, but it's very quickly going to start thickening up. You'll notice it within a few seconds. That's the psyllium husk absorbing the liquid. So when we're at this point where we can see that the majority of, well, all of the flour I guess, has disappeared into the liquid, knock it all off before it sets on the whisk, and now we're going to leave it for 15 minutes to absorb all that liquid. after 10-15 minutes, I can see that that liquid has now all been absorbed and it's actually quite firm. So take a rubber spatula, clean down the sides, and we're just going to give it a bit of a mix together. Working our way round, just pull from the edge into the middle. We're making sure that everything's nice and smooth. Do that about half a dozen times. And you will see the surface starting to get a little bit smoother. Okay, there we go. Nice piece of dough. Okay, add, just truffle that around the outside of the bowl. What we're going to do is just swirl the dough around inside there so it gets nice and evenly coated. Pop it over, so we do the other side. There we go. Now you can either cover this with a piece of cling film or a damp tea towel. What I prefer to do is pop it into one of these IKEA 365 bowls. It didn't land very well, but never mind. So, that's good. Lid on loosely, don't clip it in, and pop it somewhere warm again. And this time we're going to leave it for about an hour. An hour's passed and the dough has significantly increased in size, and you can see all the lovely air bubbles in there as it's got much bigger. So I'm going to gently tease it away. Actually, I'll use this. Makes it easier to get in there. Okay, and what I like to do at this point is drop it into a bowl that I've already popped a spoonful of flour into. Coat it on all sides. You can see it's nice and airy. So what we do now is we're going to start knocking it back so we can do a second proof. Okay, what we do, as I've just shown you, take the corner, pull it over, turn. Take the corner, pull it over, turn, turn, turn. It's not really a corner, is it? Because it's a circle, so a side. Take the side, take the side, take the side. Dip it back in for a little bit more flour. Okay. So we don't need to go crazy, just round a few times, just 30 seconds worth. Turn it over. And we're back to having a nice round ball. That'll seal up as it does its second proof. Right, give it a little bit more oil, just enough to make sure it stays wet. Let's do the other side as well. Oops. Okay. And tiny dusting of flour to try and stop it sticking. And back in it goes. Okay. Lid on, loosely, and back into a warm place for another hour. Alternatively, at this point, we've got another one here. You can pop it out, as we did before. Let's give it a nice loosen. Drop it into the flour. Okay. Okay. So, what we did before, to improve the structure and knock some of the bigger bubbles out. Right, now give it a little bit more of a flour dusting, and what we're going to do now is actually form the pizza base. So, starting at the middle, we want to spread it out and try and keep a bit of a ridge around the edge, so that we'll get some crust at least. You're never going to get the same amount of crust as with a regular flour pizza, but we can at least have something. Okay, this is going to take a little while. It takes a couple of minutes to do it without knocking the whole thing to pieces, and occasionally add a bit more flour in. And I think we should speed it up at this point. So, we are about a dinner plate size. And a ridge still around the edge. Some space. Ooh, tiny bit of stickiness there. Let's give it a little bit of a whiz round with the flour. Okay, that's good. Now what I'm going to do now is transfer it onto a piece of baking parchment. This bit's always fun. There we go. Okay. Now, a tiny bit of oil. I'm going to use a pastry brush for this. Let's pop some in my hand. And then we need a damp cloth. Just use a, actually don't use a tea towel, I use a napkin. Wet it, wring it out. Cover that over because we really don't want that to dry out. And we can leave that in a nice warm place, maybe on the shelf of an oven with the light on, or if your kitchen's nice and warm then it can stay there. But again, we want to leave that for about an hour. So here we are an hour later, and again we've got a significant rise, so that will have developed a good amount of flavour hopefully. Out it comes again. Just loosen it around the edges. And it's not sticking at all, which is good. Okay, into just as before. There we go. You might have seen that it hadn't completely sealed up in the middle, so I've turned it over and done it that way up. Make the slightly dodgy underside go underside, and we don't have to see it. Okay, so off we go. Starting at the middle, we're going to slowly press it out. Making sure it stays unstuck from the work surface. And if you get it nice and thin in the middle, then you don't have to keep coming back to the middle. You can just push out the edges until they get to the right size. Try and keep a lip around the end, around the edge even. And right, okay, let's tiny bit more flour. Attempting to keep it circular, and let's speed it up at this point. As you can see, I have been fairly robust with it, and it hasn't torn. Just have to check every now and again that it's not stuck to the work surface. And there we go. One dinner plate sized pizza base. Okay, slightly thicker at the edges. Now what I'm going to do now is transfer it onto one of these. This is good because it, with the high hydration of the flour, a gluten-free pizza base does take a little bit longer to cook. Yeah, so I like to get the heat from the bottom and the top. So let's get it onto here. It's a good old stretch out. Doesn't matter if it's not perfectly round. Once you cut it into slices, nobody cares. Okay, so ready for toppings. However, one little thing to do, again with the oil, tiny bit of oil. If you want a brown edge, then you're going to need to add a little bit of oil. So a little bit of oil around the edge, because gluten-free flour doesn't brown up in the same way as regular. So, a bit of oil in about 1 to 2 centimetres. You don't have to do all of it. Get it around the edges as well. There we go. Now it's time for toppings. So, oh, I've got flour in that, never mind. It's just you don't have to go mad expensive. This is just Tesco's standard bolognese pasta sauce. Get up to where you oiled it. There we go. I think that's plenty. Good, good, good. And then we can add some, for me it's just mozzarella, sorry to the purists out there, I do like to load up my pizzas. And mushrooms. Now at this point you could pop on a sprinkle of parmesan just to oomph it up a bit. I'm not going to bother at this point. Plenty on there, but remember those mushrooms will shrink to almost nothing. Now we're going to pop that in the oven at 220 degrees for about 14 minutes. Might be a bit longer or a bit shorter depending on your oven. If you've got a pizza setting, great. If not, just do it on fan. So here we have the pizza that I shaped before the second rise. You can see it's quite a bit fatter on the edges, this one. Yeah, there's a lot more air in that crust. So I'm going to transfer that to one of my pizza cooking trays. Same with the edge, run a bit of olive oil around the edge again, because what we did before has all soaked in already. There we go. I'm using a brush because then you don't knock all of the air out of it, and also you kind of don't tend to tear it to pieces like you would with your fingers. Well, I do anyway. Clumsy fingers. Okay, right, so that's that. Same sauce as before, the cheapy bolognese sauce. If you've got the cash, obviously, use Mutti or Cheerio or something like that, or even make up your own sauce with passata, onions, Italian herbs. But this is just so easy doing it this way. Okay, we've got almost to the edges of the and pop on the mozzarella. The mozzarella. Yep. You can use any other cheese. I really like feta cheese on mine. It works ever so well. Feta, and if you like it spicy, like a bit of a kick, get some chili paste and dot that around. Really, really nice. Well, I like it anyway. Pop on your salami or ham with the mushrooms, some spicy chicken, all sorts of things. But to be honest with you, just look for whatever's cheap in the supermarket as a pre-cooked protein, and then add some mushrooms or peppers or onions, whatever takes your fancy. Okay, so as before, we're going to pop this in for about 14 minutes at 220 degrees centigrade on the pizza setting if you've got one, or on the fan setting. And we're done. The pizza on the left is the one that I formed after the second rise. The pizza on the right is the one I formed before the second rise. As you can see, the one on the right is slightly thicker, but they both look good, and when I cut into them, got a bit of a crunch. Yep, that's looking good. That's one. You can see, hopefully you can see a fair few holes in that crust. And this one, holes as well. And it holds together nicely. So, looking good.